All right, guys, welcome to the Crush Everything YouTube channel. I have a visitor as I just started to record this, but you guys reached out, especially after the incident with my 2-year-old son. What medical gear am I using? What do you carry when you're traveling and on a daily basis? That's the question I got from so many people after that happened. And again, one of my goals is to make sure that you guys are getting better. Honestly, if you come in and watch a video, if you watch something on Instagram or YouTube, I just want to make you 1% better, a little bit better, a leap forward for yourself, your family, and ultimately to become that asset which you deserve to be, and so does your family. So what did I use for that gear? Well, first of all, I talked about it and I said, having the right gear is really important. Training with the right gear is really important. You've got to put this combination together. You've got to be able to understand how to put these pieces together. Don't just have the right gear and stare at it, or order something on Amazon and expect everything to work out. You've got to know your gear. Okay, I knew exactly where my gear was. I knew exactly how to get it open, and I've repped that in my head and visualized that multiple times. That's what I wanted to convey to you guys. So make sure in the methodology that I talk about all the time that your faith and your mindset is rock solid. Start there. Apply the right training, the skills and the gear that you think you're going to utilize, and ultimately buy the right equipment so you can engage with it the right way. Will, train, equip, and engage. That flow does not go away. Let's take a quick look at what we have in this medical kit that I'm using and what I carry on the road. This is the LVL bag that I carry with me everywhere. This is actually the LVL Comp, the more compact version. It's in the sling mode. When I'm in transitional spaces, especially traveling in and out of gas stations, in and out of stores, in and out of the vehicle, I don't necessarily on a 15, 20, 30-hour road trip want to be carrying my pistol on my side. So I typically have it carried off body so I can move in and out of spaces quickly. But this is always right next to me, right on the floor, so I can either grab it, put it on, move in and out of spaces. And that's just that methodology. Kind of want to explain that. Of course, these are not in stock yet. They will be. You can go, anything that I mentioned pretty much today, we don't have on our website, but you can go sign up for the out of stock notification and the reload, and we'll let you know when we get it back. We're working on all of these things. I don't recommend that being an excuse to why you don't have this gear though. Go find what you need. Go get a tourniquet right now. Go look on North American Rescue, Snake Staff. Go somewhere and get this med kit so it's ready to go. Don't just worry about if you don't have the perfect setup. Something is, in this case, is going to be better than nothing. All right, so let's just talk about real quick what I had on me that I actually utilized. This is the Reduced Signature Trauma Kit, and this is the Adaptive X Trauma Kit. I made this so that it goes in the small of your back and you can actually carry it either IWB in the waistband or IWS. This is now repacked with something in here that I'll show you. It's not actually this thick. I actually have 2 of them that I carry on a daily basis, and this is the LVL Comp panel with this Reduced Signature med kit. This is what it actually looks like when I went to use it. Now, let's break down at least what's inside of here so you guys can see a little bit more clearly what I used. And I'll talk about the 2 most important things that I used in this situation. And just to give you a little bit of background, if you don't know already, I posted it on my Instagram what happened. This real world rep was my 2-year-old son sprinting down the hallway as fast as he possibly could, and he tripped and launched head first into a metal door frame right on the corner, and it immediately hit the front of his flesh open on his skull, and just started gushing blood. And it was a decent bleed. Like, I've seen all types of bleeds, and this specifically was something that I was like, oh, we need to get control of that very quickly. My wife was first on scene. She immediately stopped the bleed. I came over second, like probably 3 or 4 seconds later, and I was able to see enough of it to know that we needed to put pressure on that wound immediately. She did that with her hand until I could get over there with something to up that level and not just keep her hand on it, but put some type of gauze on it. Even one of the kids was smart in that moment. It's like, grab a towel. And it's like, I didn't want to go grab a towel off the bathroom floor that had lint, that had, you know, who knows how long it's been sitting on the floor with moisture on it. I don't want to further that injury or bacteria growth inside of a wound if I can help it. Now, don't get me wrong. If you have to react right away and that's all that you have around you, absolutely use that. But having the right gear is going to mitigate some of these things down the road and just keep the wound clean. I don't suggest that you go beyond taking care of the wound first. You have to take care of that immediate bleed. So I had this kit, I knew where it was, I was starting to communicate with everybody and starting to just give them direction, keeping everybody calm, take some deep breaths. I was really impressed with Joseph in that moment. I train with him all the time when he's frustrated or getting upset to take a deep breath. And as I was holding his head and he just smacked the wall of a metal door frame, he was able to, in that moment, pause and stay calm. And I was able to look at him and just say, hey, it's okay. You know, hey, Aubrey, you know, my wife's name is like, look where we're going, you know, find the nearest place, which was the other learning point to this. Always know where the nearest care is, the level of care that it is and what it's going to be able to take care of. I know these are kind of side points aside from what I want to talk about what's in this kit, but they're still great learning points. That was the one thing we took away in our AAR. We sat down and said, hey, look, anytime we travel, we got to know, no matter where it is, where the nearest care is so we can respond immediately. Those 30 seconds can save somebody's life. Okay, let's break down this kit, this reduced signature kit. So I have a handle on it, so you can just pull this open. I pulled the kit out, and ultimately it was in this type of bag here, and it was sealed up, ready to go. It did help to have a quick tear little dog ear on this bag because I was holding pressure already on top of what my wife was doing. So when I grabbed the kit, I only had one hand. So I had to grab it with my teeth and pull on it open, which you really have to train to make sure that you can do this stuff with one hand. So that dog ear was important. So if you have a med kit, make sure you kind of assess that to be like, okay, how am I gonna open this if I had one hand, this hand was injured, or whatever the case was. So that ended up turning out to be really helpful. Now, the first thing that I went for was the combat gauze. That combat gauze, which was a hemostatic combat gauze, helped unfurl that thing, get it out. I grabbed that and ripped that open with my teeth as well. You know, it's there in a ball, but you really want to get it spread out as much as you need to kind of fill that wound up. And he had a good gash on his head. It was probably about like that big, and it was gushing blood. So as soon as she took her hand off, I pressed the gauze on in there and slowly started to kind of pack that little bit of wound until I had enough there to fill the wound up. And of course, at this point, he's screaming and he's in pain, but you kind of have to block that out in a sense by keeping everybody calm, talking to yourself, talking to everybody else. I think it's good to talk to everybody else because in a sense, you're also talking to yourself. Hey guys, stay calm, take a deep breath. He's screaming. All the kids are obviously bent out of shape because they're watching their little brother, you know, spill blood out of his forehead. They don't really know what's going on. So you got to talk that through. I don't have that piece of gauze here, but ultimately, and I do have it actually in this slash kit, which we have as well. This is one of those non-negotiable things that I highly recommend taking with you everywhere once they're back in stock. And there's different purposes for this. But this slash kit also has a very convenient little dog ear there. You can see this grip tape is already ready to tear open. This has got Solo T in it, but it also has that combat gauze in there, which you can see right there is that combat gauze. Nice and compact. Really, really useful. I would say out of all the medical stuff I've ever done, we always end up saying, oh, a lot of gauze is a really, really good thing. So that combat gauze is key. I'll talk more about this in a second. Once I had the combat gauze where I wanted it and I had all that bunched up, I had the pressure on his head, then I was actually thinking already, well, how am I going to bring him? And again, what if this was more traumatic? What if it was actually a worse injury? What if he was bleeding even more than that and I had to get him to urgent care? Well, I realized very quickly to pick him up and hold pressure on his head that's moving all over the place, he's already trying to move away from. How am I going to support that? That's where this Israeli bandage came in. This compression dressing really, really was useful to put around his head. So it has a spot on here that's got a built-in gauze to it. Obviously that's going to go on the wound to be able to absorb any more liquid than it needs to and provide a little bit more sterile surface area. And I'm going to put that right on top. And this part doesn't stretch either. I think that's another important part about this is that part that's on the wound is putting pressure down. Once that happens, you have the hook Velcro going up so that when I wrapped his head, one good wrap and kind of coming around this side, I was able to grab onto that. Now I can really start putting some extra pressure on whatever I need to, and then ultimately close it up. And that's what I did. in that moment, which was perfect to be able to get in and out of the vehicle, or for a second remove my hand from his head. And that is not ideal, by the way. You want to keep direct pressure the entire time. I don't care if you have stuff on the wound or not, it can only help. So for me, it's a microsecond that I want to release that pressure. So I had this on his head, still kept pressure on it, and when I was able to lift him up and remove this, I had to grab him, lift him up, and then replace my hand to put pressure on the wound. So this and the combat gauze were the two things that really, really helped me out. The other stuff that I have on me, which was in this reduced signature trauma kit, this Adaptive X reduced signature trauma kit, was chest seals, which are really important for sucking wounds in the chest cavity. That's a little bit more, I'm not going to say advanced, but you got to go through some proper training to understand how these work, why they work, but they're here and they're important, especially when there's any type of trauma with explosions or a puncture wound in the chest. This chest wound can happen really easily and start collapsing one of your lungs, run out of air, run out of oxygen, and ultimately that's how people can lose their lives and have a really hard time breathing. The other part to that with this chest seal is a decompression needle. Okay, we toiled with whether this was going in there or not, but our earlier packs, we absolutely wanted them in there because I know how important they are to actually get the chest under control and stabilize it with the decompression. Again, it's just a lot of medical training that you have to go through, and also a nasal passage, an airway. So if you're trying to get air, if they've got any obstructions going on with their face, you can get this down the nose and still be able to gain an airway to the throat area and get air in the lungs, whether you're doing it manually or with a breathing tube, or whatever the case is. So those are the things in the reduced trauma kit, the reduced signature trauma kit. But again, the two things that I thought were extremely useful for this time were that gauze and the compression dressing. This also is in there, which is a frog tape. It's kind of a multi-purpose tape for any type of medical situation. Again, I could use this to enhance keeping this pressure dressing on. I could use it to enhance keeping the chest seal on. It's really to support just about anything on the body. It's very, very adhesive. Really like this stuff as like a go-to. They're already pre-cut in strips, so if you need to come off and put more tape on, you could. So this is good stuff. We have it in all of the reduced signature kits as well. And we actually have that in our, we have a form of tape in this as well, the slash kits. So that's really the breakdown of the medical kit that I used and why it's important. You know, just to show you real quick, you know, I have two bags with me typically. The other bag that I have has a cat tourniquet in it. And then in this comp bag, I also have the snake staff tourniquet, which is what I had on the Sean Ryan show. Very, very, very lightweight. No excuse not to be able to utilize this thing. You know, this is ready to go. Again, I've had even my close buddies reach out to me and say, hey, I went and upgraded my medical kit. Apparently I need to do one of these every month to just shake people up a little bit and say, hey guys, make sure you got the right gear, especially if you have children. Okay, this tourniquet I really, really like just because of its lightweight nature, but this is an easy one to be able to utilize, okay, in an extremist situation. It's gonna stop the bleeding. You know, you're gonna be able to get this to the point where you're gonna stop the bleeding. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this thing up, go around, and then just like most of them, it's got this windlass on it, then I'm gonna be able to twist on and get this thing nice and tight. Okay, a tourniquet is something you've got to have. Now, I will say this snake staff one is actually really good and could probably get away with doing it on my kids. Like right now I can tell you that pretty much my circulation's off. Okay, and that's cutting into my arm. And then I would just click it into this little windlass stop and you're good to go. So do not avoid, after you watch this video, going to get some type of tourniquet. Do not buy them off of Amazon. Go to North American Rescue or Snake Staff, please. Don't go anywhere else. I'm sure there's a couple other places that have them, but off the top of my head, I don't have that information. This is a simple one because of its low-vis nature, and you're more likely to carry this with you, and that's really what I want to accomplish, is you guys upgrading your kit and carrying these with you. The solo tee that is in the slash kit is the last thing that I'll talk about. And again, when these are back, this is something that I absolutely have everywhere with me. If I'm going into the city and I don't have a bag, boom, this goes right into my slash pocket or any type of pocket that I have. But the solo tee here, this tourniquet and the solo tee is what I would absolutely have for children. I've stopped multiple bleeds. Not that I'm recommending that you say, okay, this is for multiple bleeds. You really have to count on this being for one. But I have stopped multiple real world bleeds with one solo tee. So I'm very confident that I could stop multiple bleeds on my children with this solo tee. It's very, very good. It grabs and bonds to itself. It's almost like electrical tape that really gets that good stretch, and you get to compress that wound. So going above the wound and really, really using a decent amount of this is going to stop a bleed. I highly recommend you have this. Again, what's in this as well? It's combat gauze and some type of compression. I could have done the same thing to Joseph with this small kit. I could have been, boom, packed the wound and put the solo tee around his head or some type of a compression dressing. Again, just stuff that you shouldn't be without, guys. I don't care if you buy this from us or not, even if we reload it in the future. What I do want is you to be safer, more prepared, and just a little bit more of an asset to yourself and your family. That's my goal here with breaking this stuff down for you, and hopefully you get something out of that. When I travel, I always have this stuff. When I'm at home, I always have this stuff. Have multiple levels of medical gear, of capabilities on yourself, your person, and then ultimately escalating to bag, to vehicle. That's just a 3 easy step to remember. What's on me? What do I have that I can get to immediately? And what's in my vehicle or the first spot that's around me? Don't make excuses, guys. Go get the right gear right now after you watch this video. I'll put the link down below for North American Rescue and Snake Staff and Templar Medical as well. Templar Medical is another guy I worked with that is absolutely the dude that I would go to for any advice, especially when it comes to trauma, field care. He is the dude, and he's the guy that I collaborated with to make this slash kit. You can see down there, Templar Medical. Love the name too. That's it for this breakdown, guys. Of course, I want to talk about everything else that's on my gear too, right? Like, I'm obviously always carrying a blade on me, always carrying a rosary, always carrying medical gear, but you've got to have the right stuff and be able to deploy it, be able to have it at the right time. So have the right mindset, grow your faith, train with what you think you're going to do and what you're preparing for, have the right equipment, and ultimately engage. God bless everybody. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all of your might. Peace.